You've been in post for a year now, and I wondered if you could give us a quick vignette, a picture of what you think the UK, what you want the UK to look like in 3 years' time after the first term or so of your premiership.
I want people to feel better off, and there has to be a central focus on living standards. I want them to feel, as they will, that the health service is working much better, is there for them and their families in a way that it hasn't been for many years. And I want them to feel safe and secure both in their immediate neighbourhood and as a country, both our borders and national security and defence. So they're the three things that I'm focused on more than anything else, those three things. I want them to feel that we've cleared up the mess that we inherited after the election. It was a huge mess because we had a broken economy and broken public services, and that we're on the road to rebuilding the country.
Okay, thank you. And what about child poverty? What would you like to see as progress on that?
Well, I mean, poverty and tackling poverty and breaking down barriers has to be central to everything that we do. People will not feel better off or safe and secure if we haven't tackled poverty. But I'm very clear in my own mind that we must tackle poverty by putting in the support that is needed, but also break down the barriers to opportunity, because otherwise we won't fix the very deep and complex causes of poverty, and that's why it's central to what we are doing.
So I just wanted to go back to my first point about doing things differently. This was poor legislation. It was designed to save money for the Treasury by cutting support to sick and disabled people. It was so far removed from Labour values of fairness and social justice, let alone compassion and common decency. I have to say I felt ashamed. So what are the values that will underpin the government in terms of the policy making going forward, so that we avoid the harms, the potential harms and the real harms that people are going to face, disabled people, vulnerable people are going to face?
I think this is a really important Labour value. I think the fact that there are nearly 1 million young people out of work, not earning or learning, is a huge challenge for our country. And none of us should be accepting of a system that operates like that. It is broken, it needs to be mended. All the evidence is that if you're on benefits and out of work at that young age, the likelihood of ever getting into good, well-paid, secure employment goes down, down, down for the rest of your life.
Every day it's clearer that the civilian population of Gaza is being starved, killed and displaced in a systematic yet indiscriminate way. The steps the UK has taken thus far have had no effect on the criminal actions of the Israeli government. Indeed, these have accelerated and spread to the West Bank. What further steps will the government take to protect Palestinians from mass killing and destruction of their homes and communities? And will these include recognition of Palestine as a state and acting on our obligations under the ICJ advisory opinion?
Firstly, we need, in direct answer to the first part of your question, we need a ceasefire, and we need it straight away, because that will create the space for the remaining hostages to be released. They've been held for a very, very long time. It will create the space for aid to get in at speed and at volume, which is desperately needed. And equally importantly, create the space for a political process, which to my mind is the only long-term way to get a sustained peace in Gaza. And we mustn't forget what's happening in the West Bank as well. I do think, in answer to the second part of your question, that it is important that all countries, including ours, play a leading part in bringing about the peaceful settlement that we want. And obviously, on the question of recognition, we are and have been for a long time committed to that as part of the process, as a contribution to the peace process at a time most conducive to the prospects of peace. We are working with others on how we get from where we are now to a two-state solution, which is the only viable option to my mind. And I think that we need to use the coming weeks to push further on credible plans for the next phase of Gaza. If we get to a ceasefire, we need to push past that and on to better regionally supported reconstruction efforts and supporting of the Arab plan. And I think we should play a leading part in that.
I think, if I may, you began by talking about ceasefire, which is absolutely right, because that is the sine qua non here. But we hear a lot of words, and there's been another statement, I understand today, a joint statement with 25 countries, but people are asking for action. You must hear that, and certainly Foreign Secretary hears that every week in the House of Commons, and we have yet to see any steps that have led the Israelis to take action on a ceasefire. Indeed, the opposite is the case. Every morning brings new horrors and new atrocities, new displacements, new deaths of civilians queuing for food in that way. And they're looking to you and to this government to try and provide something which makes that ceasefire happen. What will that be?
Firstly, let me be clear. The situation on the ground in Gaza is intolerable on so many levels. And we make that absolutely clear in all of our exchanges with Israel and with other countries. Whether that's the deaths for those that are queuing for aid, whether it's the plans to force Palestinians to live in certain areas or excluded from certain areas, they're all intolerable and absolutely wrong in principle. We have taken action, as you know, in terms of sanctions, in terms of what we're doing with arms sales, and we are working hard with allies to ensure we bring about a ceasefire. That is not straightforward, as you will appreciate. It is important that we're working with the Americans on this, as you would expect. But we need to get to that ceasefire to create the conditions for everything else that needs to happen, and we'll continue to do so. It is a really important part of the work that we're doing on a day-to-day basis.
We should have responded to the advisory opinion by now. It's over a year since that was issued.
Well, I mean, there's a lot in it, and we're working through it, and we will respond in due course. We need to cooperate and coordinate in how we're bringing about the capability. That was intensely part of the discussion with the Chancellor of Germany last week and with President Macron, which is how do we three countries in particular coordinate? So you'll have seen when President Macron was here, we agreed that on nuclear for the first time, we would look at how we might coordinate better. I'm absolutely clear in my own mind that NATO has been the cornerstone of our peace for decades. If it's to continue to be, and it's our duty to make sure that it is, it requires some more heavy lifting from the Europeans. And that is why I sort of led from the front in trying to get others into the place of cooperating, coordinating more on the capability. We can learn a lot from Ukraine. A lot of capability was made available to Ukraine, but actually it wasn't as useful as it could have been because in years gone by there wasn't that level of coordination, and I think we can fix that now.
So can I ask you just about something else in relation to defence, and I think we have to ask you about this, about that shocking data breach for Afghan. I wondered, do you think there was a better way in which the previous government could have dealt with the data breach? Do you think that a super injunction was the right way? Do you think there was a better way of dealing with it?
It was a shocking inheritance. We inherited the breach, we inherited the injunction, and we inherited a secret scheme. A number of us were quite uncomfortable about that, in answer to your question, which is why we set up the review to ask the question, is it necessary for these arrangements still to be in place, the RIMA review? And that produced an answer which was no, and therefore the injunction was lifted. And we put in place other measures, as you would expect, to ensure that data is more securely held in the MOD. But it was it was a breach we inherited, and I think the Defence Select Committee is looking at it now, and I hope that members of the previous administration will appear before that committee and give their explanations.
Dame Emily, I just wonder why it took a year to unpick this super injunction. Can you give us any more information about that timeline?
Yes, it was a very complicated review, and having got into the situation where lives were potentially at risk, I wanted the review to be as careful as it could be.
So you undertook the review because you were uncomfortable about the super injunction?
Yes.
But you wanted to know what the impact of removing it would be?
Of course, because that was a risk assessment which held people's lives in it.
Decision made on entry into government
Well, I mean, pretty soon afterwards, yeah.
Briefed in the first briefed as Prime Minister, not as Leader of the Opposition, just to be clear.
I wasn't briefed as Leader of the Opposition.
Okay.
To be fair, it wasn't...
Just be clear with the record.
It wasn't offered to me, but to be fair to the last government, they did offer me briefings on most things. Yeah. As it happens, they didn't offer a briefing on this, but I'm not complaining as such. I didn't get offered it, but to be fair, I did get offered briefings on a quite regular basis.